He owns and operates the Pack-A-Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack-A-Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
I thought it was good just to get him back out there, back in the mix, into the rhythm of playing quarterback. We did some different things with him that we haven't done in the past. I mean, we pretty much were primarily doing everything under center. So yeah, I thought it was good work.
Good morning, Packers Nation. Happy Wednesday. More importantly, happy National Radio Day. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Not only is it National Radio Day, it's Sarah Kelleher Day here on the Pack-A-Day Podcast. She'll be joining us 8:20 AM on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. She's from the Pack-A-Day Podcast, I should say. Excited to chat with her at around 8:20 AM this morning. Also would love for you to join the show. Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text Line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. You can also hit us up over on YouTube. Get those comments in, and we should be able to get to your questions and comments throughout the course of today's show. Tommy, it is National Radio Day today. It seems insane that we together have almost been doing this show for a year. We're getting close to the 1 year anniversary, which again seems absolutely absurd. And listen, if it weren't for the Pack-A-Day Radio Show, I wouldn't even know you. So you know what more could you possibly want than National Radio Day today?
Yeah, I know. I actually, that is crazy to think that it's been a year and that we weren't even doing video until like 2 months ago. So we were just voices in each other's heads for the longest time. On
True
top
story.
of that, which is kind of like, you got to paint your own picture and follow that voice like in radio the whole time. And I love it. I can't believe it. Super excited. I've been in radio for a little bit now, a few years, and like love my situation where I'm at right now, and can't believe it's almost been a year here now.
Yeah, it seems very insane. One of the crazy things is, how when you listen to somebody on the radio and you can't see that like their face or don't know what they look like, that you like generate an image in your mind.
Yeah.
I wish I knew like just like what people listening were, or like the image that they have, and I wish they could like get like a police sketch artist and just like describe it so I could see what that image looks like. It can't be great, it would be my guess, but I would love to know what that image looks like for people who don't know what I look like and are just going based off of voice inflection and nothing else.
There's no way that people who don't know what I look like haven't perceived me as hotter than I actually am in real life. There's no way. There's no way that I will disappoint every time if you see my face, but if you don't want to find out, just keep listening on the radio.
Well, here's the great thing. If you are wondering out there, and if always, or maybe you just want to, think of Tommy and I exactly how we are, but you can check us out over on YouTube and see exactly the scariness that is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show every single day. We just appreciate all of you being here and making us available on the radio. If it weren't for you guys, obviously we wouldn't be here. So thank you so much, and thank you for making Pack-A-Day part of your daily routine. Tommy, we've got a lot to get to. We will probably talk a little bit of Brewers later. A little bit of a disappointing day yesterday, but we'll talk about that later. I'm totally good with yesterday. No panic, no frustration, no issues whatsoever. They are human. It's okay. We also had a big day at Packers practice. Some actual good news on the injury front when it comes to the Green Bay Packers. Yesterday, two players, Kenny Clark and LVN, returned to practice. No new injuries. And, knock on wood, and we did not see anybody go down with any sort of injury yesterday. It's not to say that, we couldn't find out something after the fact, or that there couldn't be a new player on Thursday or whatever. But for the most part, we were in the +2 category yesterday. Two players, Kenny Clark, LVN, returning from injury, and no new players on that list. It's a good day to be a Packer fan right now.
Yeah, and as well, bury the lead, the quarterback got to go back to practice too, Andy.
Yeah, well, he was back the other day, or for the first the day before when it was not open to the media. But yes, it was the first one with actual fans there that he was back. And regardless, the first day and all the rain and stuff, a little bit up and down from Jordan. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Yesterday, Jordan was on fire. He started 7 on 7s, 8 of 8, which is a weird thing to say, but he was 8 of 8 and 7 on 7s to begin with. and he was accurate all over the field. And then he was definitely taking what the defense was giving them to begin with, and kind of taking some checkdowns, some swing passes, some short passes over the middle, just kind of keeping the ball moving. But then would hit Tucker Kraft over the middle for a big gain, and then finally on his ninth pass. And this is kind of a fun one. On his ninth pass, he would throw to Romeo Doubs, and Keyshawn Nixon batted the ball away, batted it down. Referee throws a flag. Pass interference on the defense. Defense is livid, and I mean livid. There's no way they could think that this is a pass interference. Referee on the play, kicker Brandon McManus in full uniform garb. And the defense, not all of them had recognized yet that he had been out there refereeing. He was like very just nondescript for the most of the time. I think it was Matt Schneidman who maybe noticed it first. Like, he notices all this stuff. He's just a machine when it comes to like just recognizing random, like if there's a random like celebrity or like college basketball coach, like Schneidman's the first person on it every single time. So he notices that McManus is out there. And then all of a sudden, like, the defense recognizes that it's McManus that threw the flag. And it was awesome just to see their reactions to like him being out there. Don't know why that happened. Or like, we've reached the point in training camp, Tommy, where the kicker is now refereeing the practices. That's how you know it's time to get to the regular season, is when the kicker is now refereeing. And there, by the way, 0.0% chance that was pass interference on that play. Keyshawn Nixon absolutely broke up that pass. It was a beautiful play by Nixon, and the defense was rightfully upset. Matt LaFleur after the play said those are the type of flags that we like, and was very complimentary of Brandon McManus for the help there on offense. But outside of that, so you finally got an incompletion. After that, Jordan went over, kind of over the middle to McCole Hardman. It was probably a little bit fast and high into the outside and just skimmed off his fingertips, but then he came back. 75-yard touchdown pass down the left side to Romeo Doubs, probably 45 yards in air, and then Doubs took it the rest of the way. Doubs had probably about a step and a half on Carrington Valentine on the play, and then Jordan hit him perfectly right in stride. Doubs did the rest of the work after that. So that was the type of day that it was for Jordan and the offense, and he went on, I think it was technically like 10 of 11, but it would be probably 10 of 12 if you count the pass breakup on the fake pass interference play. But either way, he looked really good on 7-on-7s. In the 2-minute drill, the drill did stall out at the end. It looked like they picked up a first down, but apparently they called it a 4th and 1. And then on the very last play, it was kind of tipped up in the air and incomplete. And the defense technically won that rep. He had 2 big completions on that drive prior to, though, just kind of stalled out a little bit at the end. But overall, I thought it was a fantastic day. No turnover worthy plays from Jordan. Was extremely accurate with the football, and again, just completion after completion after completion. Looked like an absolute machine. So despite the left hand being what it is and him being limited, so like in the 2-minute drill, like he just starts with the ball, nobody's snapping it to him or things like that. They had to be creative with it. On 7-on-7s, he's taking the ball off of a stool so he can get to his spot. Like they were just very creative with how they're still getting him involved, despite the fact that he can't do kind of true 11-on-11 work. I was very appreciative of like how they kind of went about doing that.
Yeah, and you needed to have Jordan Love to have a big day after returning from that injury to kind of settle things, right? Obviously, no one thought that it was going to really hinder him and keep him out for a significant long time based on what we heard previously from Brian and from Matt LaFleur. But Jordan Love, like, it's a big year for him. It's a massive season for Jordan Love coming up in year 3 here. And, the knock on being injured going into week 1, which he probably will still be hurt going into week 1. But after last year, got a lot of excuses, not that they were unjust, but a lot of excuses on his injury status last season for his performance last season. And going into this season with another injury, it raised concerns for a lot of people, Andy.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that you said there, too, is just kind of got everything settled in. And it's just like anytime your quarterback's out there, it just feels like all is right in the world. And when he's not out there or when it's the backup quarterback, everything just feels a little bit off. And with all the injuries that they've already sustained, and then when Jordan's not out there, and, the 2 preseason performances haven't exactly been the most exhilarating things in the world, everything feels a little bit meh. And then when your QB1 comes back and just has an awesome day like that, it's like, oh, who cares? Sunshine and rainbows. Everything is phenomenal with the world, and that's kind of what it felt like yesterday. Romeo Doubs had a big day yesterday too. As I mentioned, he had that big touchdown catch, but he was all over the place, catching a bunch of different passes all throughout the course of practice. And then probably my favorite play of the day. So prior to the play, I swear, and I don't know for sure. And usually, like, we're not allowed to like quote exactly what's said. I'm not like quoting anything like that. I heard I heard Matt, what I felt like, call his shot before a play. Now, Marcus Eversole is next to me, and I'm like, did he just call his shot? Because he's like, just based on what he said, it very much felt to me like he was like, hey, watch this one or whatever, something like that. And I'm like, all right, well, like, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what this play is going to be. So like, I tell Marcus, I'm like, I feel like this is going to be an interesting one. And again, can't break down the full play details, but there was definitely a little bit of trickeration on it, a little bit of play action. And of course, like right before, I'm like, watch, he just like hands it off and there's nothing here. There's a little bit of trickeration on the play. And sure enough, Matthew Golden, deep post. You can find this one over on the Packers social media handle. They did post it. You can't see the full play, but you can see the throw and the catch. Malik Willis, absolute dime on a deep post route to Matthew Golden. I think that was one of the first deep balls that Malik Willis has probably completed, certainly with that level of efficiency and accuracy. And Matthew Golden just absolutely burned by the defense, and he's wide open, chilling in the end zone for a touchdown. Gorgeous play, but it was just like, I literally thought that Matt called his shot before that. And maybe he didn't. Maybe it was happenstance. Maybe it was something different that he was saying and I just misinterpreted it. But it definitely felt like he was calling his shot. And then all of a sudden, 60-yard bomb to Matthew Golden for a touchdown. It was a sweet play, and it was even sweeter like with Matt feeling like Matt kind of called the shot before the play. So that was definitely a fun one.
Yeah, I saw the play. I saw what you were looking at. It looked exciting. A lot of hype afterwards. And it sounds like Matt LaFleur is really, other than Jordan Love, like expecting a lot of these guys to get some action this weekend too, Andy, in the final preseason game at least. Maybe he's just smoke and mirrors on all of it too, but I don't know why you would for a preseason game. It pretty much said like a majority, all to some of them will play on Saturday. And in that word salad in itself.
Yes, and for him, he usually does like kind of word salad that to give him options and outs, and then also he will usually say everything's always subject to change. I think a couple things, how they practice on Thursday. If they go out and just have an unbelievable day on Thursday with the starters, and or the injuries kind of continue to pile up, he may change his mind and be like, all right, we have just too many injuries. I cannot subject any more players to injury. We got to just get out of this game as healthy as possible. Or if they, again, just completely annihilate the Seahawks on Thursday, that could be something too of like, all right, we've already got our work in, and we almost don't want to have anything different than that final taste in our mouth before the regular season. I could see things still changing, but I do know that his goal overall was initially to play the starters a little bit in the first game and then do joint practices week 2. Don't do the starters at all, which he didn't in week 2, and then do the joint practice in week 3, and then play the starters in week 3 to get them ready for the start of the regular season. Again, Jordan we know will not, but I think it does make sense. It also sounds like Malik Willis is going to get a good chunk of the playing time in this game as well, which is probably a good thing for him. Like, that's going to be kind of a little bit of a showcase game for him as he tries to make his case to try to be a starting quarterback in 2026 when he's a free agent. And again, I think just good for him to get those reps with the starters as well, because it is such a different world. I mean, we saw Malik Willis be successful with the starters with almost no time under his belt in 2024. It's just such a different world when you're living with backups everywhere else. When you've got a backup offensive line, backup wide receivers, a backup running back, backup tight ends, it just is a totally different experience out there. So I think it will be good if he does get some time with the starters out there, just to kind of get him trending in the right direction too. And he's had a really good week and a half after, I thought at the middle of camp, I thought he was really struggling and just didn't seem to have the same rhythm, timing, confidence that he had a year ago. But this last week and a half, he's been more locked in, and I'm excited to see what he can do in this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL already. I don't think anyone can say any different right now. Maybe you can go to a situation that there was a quarterback battle between a couple of established starters already. But even then, would Malik Willis have competed for the job in Indianapolis? Would Malik Willis have competed for the job in Cleveland? Would Malik Willis be the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints this year? Probably yes to all three of those situations. So I don't know if he necessarily needs to have a complete ball out scenario for game 3, but I do think that it can't hurt his stock by any means either.
Yeah, at minimum he would have been in the competition for I think all three of those. I probably would rather have Malik Willis than Daniel Jones. I think at this point, I think I'm probably in that boat. I think the Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, Malik Willis debate would be an interesting one, but he would certainly be in that as well. There's definitely some spots. Cleveland, I mean, just add him into the quarterback salad that is over there. Absolutely, he would be probably in that conversation. So yeah, very, very interesting dynamic with that. It would be interesting, by the way, if like one of those teams called in like let's say Cleveland, for example, like they're probably not going to trade like Shador or something like that, but their third round pick, like Taylor Gabriel, like do you take the upside, or sorry, thank you, Dylan Gabriel, would they take the upside from that of like if they wanted to swap quarterbacks? Would you be like, yeah, we'll take the third, like the guy who's just a third round pick that's got 4 years under his belt, or do you just take the 1 year of Malik Willis? It's not going to happen, but it's just an interesting thought experiment nonetheless. Those were kind of the big takeaways. There was a cool part of practice at the end as you're listening to the Pack-A-Day radio show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook here on National Radio Day. We had, at the end of practice, they end the 2-minute drill. It's an incomplete pass, and they get the team together. We thought kind of practice was over because everyone was joining together, and they ended practice with a offense versus defense one-on-ones with push-ups on the line. They were going to do one wide receiver versus a corner, one running back versus a linebacker, both in receiving drills, and then one defensive end versus an offensive tackle. So they put them out there, high intensity, high pressure one-on-ones with everyone watching. So the first one was Isaiah Nair was the wide receiver. I believe it was Kamal Haddon was the corner. Sean Clifford was the quarterback on the play. And Nair runs an out route on his one-on-one. Haddon has pretty good coverage. Clifford puts it a little bit too far out front, and there's no opportunity for really a catch anyway. I think Haddon probably would have been there to break it away. Defense wins that particular rep. Nair can't come up with a catch, and it's probably pretty, poor throw from Sean Clifford on that one as well. 1-0 for the defense. Second one comes up. Emmanuel Wilson versus Tyron Hopper. One-on-one coverage rep, right? Emmanuel Wilson, not known for his, route running or anything like that, puts an unbelievable move on Tyron Hopper, gets him spun around, is almost like a little out and up, gets up the field, wide open down the field. Malik Willis puts it on him, maybe slightly, ever so slightly behind him. Wilson just puts it on the ground. It did everything, did all the hard work and the heavy lifting up until that point to beat Tyron Hopper, and then drops the pass at the end in very classic Packers fashion, drops the ball, and the defense wins that particular rep, even though Tyron Hopper got kind of toasted on the play. And then the final one, Anthony Belton, one-on-one in pass protection versus Bretton Cox. And this is a fun one. Two just violent physical players. Bretton Cox gets into him and forces him back just about up until the quarterback. And then Belton just sits down, anchors, and Cox is trying with every ounce of his body to move him. Just basically needs just like one more inch to be able to get to the quarterback. And Belton does not budge. It's like just statues him, and like he was just rooted into the ground at that point. That was a fun one too, against two very physical, violent players. But I would give the win. The defense celebrated like Bretton Cox got close enough. I would give the win to Anthony Belton on that play. The offense celebrated as well. So 2 wins for the defense, 1 win for the offense. It all came down to that catch, non-catch from Emmanuel Wilson. If Wilson catches it, the offense wins. If Wilson drops it, the offense loses, and Wilson drops it. And unfortunately for them, the defense wins. Offense does push-ups at the end. I like the idea, though. I like the concept of those one-on-ones and just having it be high pressure, high intensity with push-ups on the line at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like a team bonding thing as well. Yes. It's something that you can really hype up your guy who won, and you can really pick up your guy that lost during that situation, right? I mean, that's absolutely a culture building practice move as well too. Andy, I had one question about the miss throw from Jordan Love, the one incompletion.
Yep.
Was it really catchable for Hardman, or was it a Jordan Love kind of sails it over the top of the receiver, which we've seen before as well too?
So my first glance is that it was a little bit too much high and outside. I would not have called it a drop. It did touch the fingertips of Hardman, so it wasn't brutally off or anything like that. It wasn't an interceptable play by any means. There was nobody there or whatever. It was just I thought it was maybe a little bit hot, coming in hot, a little bit, maybe a little bit too much mustard on it, a little bit high and outside. I would not have put that. I would have put that one more on Jordan than I would have put it on Hardman. But I will say I didn't get a great look at that particular play. I just kind of caught it at the end because we were all kind of tweeting about the Romeo Dobbs, Brandon McManus thing that had just happened, and there was finally an incompletion after he went 8 of 8. So I kind of was like tweeting my stuff out, and then got my eyes up and just saw the ball ricochet off of McCole Hardman's hand. So I could be wrong on that, but that was my initial instinct on that one as well. And yeah, as far as like the one-on-ones at the end, yeah, very, very good team building activity. And I just love the fact that they were a little bit more high intensity, and we got to see what some of those players could do in some really unique situations. I was, for a moment, I don't know if you saw at Bears practice the other day. I don't give the Bears credit very often, but they had their like offensive lineman versus defensive lineman go one-on-one in like a receiver defensive back drill. And it was awesome. Like just 300 pounders trying to run routes and cover the guy. Now, all of that sounds great up until like one of those guys tears an ACL or something, and then the coach looks like an absolute moron because he's got his 300-pound lineman running routes on air, whatever, running routes against each other. But it was still really cool to watch. And for a moment, because they did back-to-back, one-on-ones, like receiving drills, and Belton and Bretton Cox come out, and I'm like, oh my God, Anthony Belton's going to go out and run a route against Bretton Cox. And I was so excited. And then once they did the pass rush, I was just a little bit disappointed, but I was ready to see Anthony Belton with Bretton Cox in coverage to see if Belton could burn him on a route. That I would have been all in on that.
Oh yeah, you got to do like the big guy relays, same with
sure.
Same at the track meets and all that. You got to let. Or the walking routes. Have you ever seen those? Like those are always awesome. Electric when they're not running, but
you're not allowed to run. Yeah,
but it's walking and they're doing the same thing. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, there's a couple different things. Maybe we'll get those eventually, but I was slightly disappointed we didn't get to see Anthony Belton in either as the receiver or as the guy in coverage. That would have been absolutely amazing. All right, Football Talk on the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. We are at 67 and mostly cloudy in Milwaukee right now. High of 73, low of 65. We're going to be back with Sarah Kelleher here on National Radio Day. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We are back here on the Pack a Day Radio Show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder, the Mason Crosby Show is coming up next from 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. Joining us right now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, is Sarah Kelleher. You can find her on social media at Sarah Kelleher4. You can find her on the Pack a Day podcast Wednesdays, although she was a slacker and skipped today, and Dusty and Steve had to fly solo, and they didn't know what the heck they were doing, and it's just a nightmare without Sarah. But Sarah, you made up for it by coming on today. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Always excited to talk Packers with you. And yeah, I'm sure that I'll be getting a text from Dusty and Steve right after this about why I joined your radio show, but not the podcast yesterday. So I'm waiting for it. It's coming.
Well, priorities, right? I mean, you have to have your priorities set, and you've got the radio show, and then Dusty Steve just a little slight. No, they absolutely killed it per usual, and I'm sure you guys will be reunited next week. But Sarah, we've got a lot to get into. I want to start with the topic that's on top of apparently everyone's mind, and I think it's probably still within the realm of fantasy, but as every day that this goes on where there is no Trey Hendrickson deal in Cincinnati and everyone's talking about a potential divorce of Micah Parsons in Dallas, and you've got the completely unsubstantiated rumor by Ricky, the anonymous dog insider on Twitter, that the Packers are making offers for Micah Parsons. And then you have Ian Rappaport, who goes on, I think it was the Pat McAfee show, and it says like, hey, if there's a team that makes sense to trade for Micah Parsons, it's the Green Bay Packers. There's just enough, like just tiny bit of smoke out there that I think it's still worth discussing. So Sarah, let me ask you, what is your appetite, or what maybe should the Packers' appetite be for trying to make a trade for Trey Hendrickson or Micah Parsons?
Yeah, Andy, I saw your tweet yesterday about LaFleur and Goody talking at practice, and that's what they were talking about. I don't know
Clearly.
if they were talking about it right there, but I definitely think that they've talked about it. It's certainly come up of, what's it going to take, and how can you not? I think between both of them, if you look at them on paper, they're both beasts, but Micah Parsons is 26 years old, and everybody on Pack-A-Day messes with me that, I'm the young kid, and this guy's almost a year and a half older or younger than me. So the age factor is incredibly appealing when you look at a guy like Micah Parsons too. And, with the production, when he's healthy, my goodness, it's hard not to think, what are the possibilities there? What do we have to give up? I think this is honestly classic Jerry Jones stirring the pot a little bit, and then week one's going to roll around, a deal will get done, and he'll, steal Thursday Night Football week one, and that'll be the story versus, the Eagles and their rings and, hanging the banner and all of that. So I don't think it's going to happen, but I certainly think that the Packers are probably, whispering a little bit about it, what's it going to take. And it's really just a matter of that. But I would be surprised to see either one of those things happening, just knowing how conservative the Packers are when it comes to kind of making a splash like this.
It is really interesting. The only thing that gives me some pause, a couple things. In Dallas, like it does seem like there is some semi bad blood right now between Parsons and Dallas, which again makes things interesting. And same thing where like the Bengals are now open to trading Hendrickson. Like they apparently like the years, the money is there, but the guarantees are way off, and they just cannot come to a resolution on that. Like it wouldn't stun me at this point if either of these players does end up traded. And the only other thing that gives me like just maybe sort of ideas is the fact that by all accounts, Goody had a very significant offer out for Khalil Mack when he was traded, and the Bears just had a little bit more than him. It was basically 2 first-round picks that Chicago gave up for Khalil Mack, and if the Packers were very much, in that realm of trading for him, I mean, Mack was in a very similar situation at the time that Micah Parsons is now, and I could imagine if the Packers were interested in Mack, they would probably be interested similarly in Micah Parsons. Now, it depends on how Goody feels about his defense and his defensive end room, like if he really truly believes that this is going to be a massive breakout year for LVN and that Rashawn Gary is still one of the better defensive ends in the league, then he probably doesn't feel like he needs to make either of those moves. But the thing about Parsons, especially, not only the 26 years old, but the versatility, like take away even defensive end. Can you imagine a double A-gap blitz with Edgerrin Cooper and Micah Parsons coming up the middle, and just the pure insane athleticism, speed, and violence that those two guys can play with? There would be so much stuff that Jeff Hafley could do with that type of player in this defense. As you mentioned, I think that the most appropriate thing here is if you're an NFL franchise and you haven't at least had the conversations of like, all right, what would it take? What would we give up? And how could we potentially get a player like Micah Parsons on our team? I don't know what you're doing. You have to at least have that conversation. And I'm sure, like you said, Goody and company have probably had that.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of if they're going to be traded is one thing. If they're going to be traded to the Packers is another thing too. So
Totally
we'll
another.
see.
Yes, it would be interesting to see if like Goody kind of made that signature move, like at some point, right? And I know that he's obviously gone out and got Zadarius Smith. He's gotten, Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs. It's not like he's not without signature moves on his resume. But like at some point, you're general manager of an NFL football team. You got like the dream job of dream jobs. You're like, everyone out there is a fantasy football manager. You get to do it for real. Like you actually go out and get to acquire players. At some point, don't you just want to make that like one super bold, like this is what I'm going to put my stamp on. Like people are going to remember me. Like everyone else is always going to remember signing Ron Wolf. Everyone's going to remember, Ted Thompson, Ron Wolf signing Reggie White, Ted Thompson signing Charles Woodson. Like if you go out and trade for Micah Parsons, that is like a legacy type move. You only get one shot at this thing being an NFL general manager. It almost like at some point, do you just not want to like take your shot and be super aggressive on something? It would be really fun if this was the thing that he did. I don't expect it either, Sarah. It's fun to talk about. It's good conjecture, what they would give up, what they could potentially bring. But we will be having quite the podcast in celebration if all of a sudden Micah Parsons or Trey Hendrickson end up becoming Green Bay Packers. That's for sure. Let's get to a different topic here as we're being joined by Sarah Kelleher. Find her on the Pack-A-Day podcast, of course, Sarah Kelleher 4 over on social media. We've obviously had 2 preseason games. We've had 1 joint practice, 17 training camp practices so far. There's been a lot that's happened. What to you have been your key takeaways from this training camp / preseason so far? Good, bad, ugly, and different. I'll let you go in any direction you want.
Yeah, I think overall, if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture and look at what some of the past camps and off seasons have looked like, I think it's been pretty uneventful, but in a good way. Injuries aside, injury has been the biggest storyline. But, we had Matt Schneidman on the Wednesday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast a couple weeks ago from The Athletic. And I asked him straight up, hey, since you started covering the Packers several years ago, is this kind of the most boring, for lack of better terms, off season that you've covered? In the Rodgers era at the end, it's will he or won't he stay? And then the Packers turn the page and it's the beginning of the Jordan Love era and a lot of storylines there. And now it's just kind of, okay, the Packers are a young team. Everyone knows the Packers are a young team. They're clearly in this stage where they believe in what they've got and they want to grow and develop these guys. And I think that's been another storyline that's just been evident in this camp is they're still a young team. And preseason was certainly a reminder of that. There were some sloppy mistakes in the preseason games, penalties and little mistakes that we saw throughout last season kind of trickled over. Hopefully they can get that out of their system in the preseason. And when week 1 rolls around, it's not so bad. But then you see moments of fight and promise, the comeback against the Colts. And, they looked like they were down and out, and then they come back and show a little bit of fight, and kind of it's that constant roller coaster of going up and down with a young team. So nothing has necessarily blown me away, shocked me this camp, but at the same time, I'm really excited about what's to come. I think that the pieces are there and they're working with the guys and trying to figure it out. And, I know we'll probably talk about it in a second, just some of those key position battles, especially on the offensive line. And even at the end of the wide receiver room, what that's going to look like and rounding out that room. So I talked about it with you last time too. Marshawn Lloyd just sucks that he keeps getting injured. I really am so high on this guy and want it to work out. So I think running backs become more of a conversation than if all things went well and everyone was healthy, then maybe what the Packers thought. Now RB3 becomes a little more important if Lloyd is going to start the season injured again. So just some interesting position battles, but nothing, again, that's blowing me away or making me really nervous or lean one way or another. I think Packers are young. They're still going to kind of fight that battle, and hopefully they can just continue to improve.
I know what the answer was, but for our listeners, what was Matt's response? Did he agree that it was one of the more boring training camps, or what did he say?
Yeah, he said pretty much. He said there's always stories to cover. Some of the rookies have had interesting stories, both as athletes and people, that he's wrote some really great stuff on. But yeah, there's not as much drama, I guess. There's still things happening, but there's not drama where every day on First Take the Packers are being talked about like they had in the last few years.
which is not the worst place to be. If you're kind of just off the radar a little bit, not causing a lot of buzz, let Jerry and Micah Parsons and the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson and all these other, storylines that are taking place, let them have the buzz over there. And then hopefully you can kind of take everyone by storm once the season actually starts. And they just have to go and actually take the league by storm once the season starts. And hopefully they can do so. Hopefully one of the players that can help them do so is Matthew Golden. He's been off to a really impressive start, had the deep bomb yesterday from Malik Willis. Everything about him has said that he is going to have a big time role on this team, not even including the injuries at wide receiver right now. They continue to put him out in all different spots, hit him at all different layers of the field. He has been everything as advertised so far. Sarah, if this does in fact click and Matthew Golden is as expected as a super talented first round wide receiver, what does that do for this offense?
Everything. I mean, giving Jordan Love another weapon, knowing that Christian Watson is progressing really well with his ACL rehab and is probably going to come back earlier than expected, paired with, other weapons that Love loves like Romeo Doubs, and then you throw Matthew Golden into the mix, and really it's just so exciting. And I think besides the injuries, this has been the thing that everyone has been talking about the most. If anyone who follows the team as a fan, or if you cover the team and professionally and are really in the weeds with it, that if the front office at 1265 Lombardi Avenue is drafting a wide receiver, that he's probably legit. If they're going to finally do that first round and make a big splash like that, the Packers, yes, they're historic and legendary, but they're not showmen in that way. They are going to pick the best player available, and they felt like he was the best player available then. It worked out. It was picture perfect. So we really just need to hope the injury bug doesn't get to Matthew Golden either. And if it doesn't, I'm going to start getting very delusional about him. If the trend continues and, what we're hearing and seeing from clips, for me, at least being in Florida, what I'm seeing online, if he continues to trend in that direction, it's just so exciting. And the Packers truly have a guy that the hands are strong, incredibly fast. The route running is crisp. So it's everything that you'd want from any wide receiver, let alone your rookie wide receiver in year one.
Yeah, he's going to be a fun player one way or the other. I'm sure there's still going to be a learning curve and some hiccups along the way, and it's probably not going to be perfect from day one, but the talent is very clearly evident. The speed is as advertised, and he is going to be a very fun piece within this offense, no question about it. We're being joined by Sarah Kelleher. Find her on social media at Sarah Kelleher4, and of course on the Wednesday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast. We've got a big preseason game coming up, the final preseason game, joint practices this week, and as you mentioned, there are still some key roster battles that are left to be decided. The starting left tackle spot is one of those, the potentially the number 3 quarterback spot, and if you kind of look all around this roster, there are certainly going to be some like Christian Welch versus Isaiah Simmons potentially for that last linebacker spot, and special teams will play a huge factor in that. What are some of the roster battles that are kind of standing out to you, and which ones do you think could ultimately be decided in this final preseason game?
Yeah, I mentioned wide receiver, so I'll touch on that one quickly. I'm really interested to see what they do here. I think, Doubs, Reed, Wicks, Golden, Williams are solid, but then you have the addition of Mecole Hardman in the offseason from the Chiefs. And of course, then there's Malik Heath, and he's always kind of on the bubble every year. So, and then you also have to think about Christian Watson is coming back at some point too. So I feel like this may be the year that Heath really is on the chopping block per se. And, if he can perform in this last preseason game against the Seahawks and, no drops, really some nice route running. And I know it's hard in that sort of environment. You're not running with the ones and the guys who you would be doing it if you were to see snaps in the regular season. But I think he's a guy that really just needs to, there's a lot of tape, and hopefully he can prove himself at the last second here if he wants to make a roster spot, because it's going to be tight. Cornerback is another one that I'm interested about, especially that 4th cornerback position. It seems like they've got, Valentine, Nixon, Hobbs kind of locked in, Bullard's in the slot. So what's that traditional, core spot after that? There's the Bo Melton of it all, and that's surely been an interesting thing to follow, making the switch from wide receiver and then Valentine. Do they go both? I think they may. It's just kind of interesting to see how that's going to shake out. And then tackles, I feel like there isn't a ton of wiggle room. Tom, Morgan, Walker, Belton, he's had his issues in the preseason, and we all saw that with LaFleur ripping into him on the sideline. But I think those are guys that they feel good about, and there won't be a ton of rotation there. There may be one or two guys on the bubble, but it'll be really interesting. I think for the most part, the roster, there's probably 40-ish people that are locks, and there's, a few spots that are left over, and those guys are really just going to have to finish strong here in joint practice with the Seahawks, and then try to have, a moment of where they can really shine in that preseason game, because there's not a lot of room for additions here based off what we've seen.
No, I totally agree. And it's lame and cliche, but special teams is going to play such a massive factor, especially with the new kick return rules too. Like, we're seeing all these kicks get returned. Like the emphasis on the kick return and the kick coverage is going to be so important. And if you can help out in either of those two phases, I mean, we're seeing teams get it, anywhere near like the 20-yard line sometimes. And a lot of teams like that are already getting good at this are getting out to like the 38, 40-yard line on some of these returns. Like, there is potentially a pretty significant difference in starting field position depending on how you perform on these kick returns. I think we are going to see a lot of returns because I don't think teams are just going to want to give it at the 35-yard line. So I think that could play a massive factor in this as well. All right, Sarah, before we get you out of here, injuries are piling up, and it just seems like every day. Thankfully, yesterday, 2 people returned, Kenny Clark and LVN, and no new players were out. So that was actually a good day on the injury list. But where are you at right now? Are you panicked? Are you concerned, nervous? Is it much ado about nothing? Like, where are you falling on the spectrum of where the Packers are at injury-wise right now?
I think I'm a little nervous, but I'm not yet totally worried about it, if that makes sense. Most of the injuries, if you look at the list, which it's like a CVS receipt list at this point, but if you look at the list, most of them are not major injuries. Any major injuries seem to be dodged. I still don't love it, but Jordan Love, for example, wasn't his throwing hand. And yes, I know it contributes, but that's still a blessing in disguise for the Packers. And then Barron Sorrell, knee injury, sprained MCL. Is it ideal? No. Is it something he can come back from? Yes. And he's a guy that, especially as a rookie, I'm really excited to see. So maybe a few weeks, but not a season-ending injury. And then there's, Jaden Reed with the foot, Dontayvion Wicks with the calf. I know it was kind of disappointing with Hobbs that there was a knee injury, but again, all those seemed like things that they're actively rehabbing, that those guys are going to come back at some point. So we'll see how it goes. Really, it's just a matter of how they progress. I mentioned Lloyd earlier. It's just unfortunate. One thing after another, the hamstring this time, and hopeful that he can bounce back from that. I mean, the Packers athletic training room has to be experts at hamstrings after the last couple of seasons. So hopefully they can get him rehabbed and back soon. But I'm not losing sleep over it. Am I thinking about it a little bit? Sure. But I think that a lot of these are pretty manageable for the most part. And are they inconvenient? Yes. Is it going to derail what the Packers have planned? I don't think so.
Do you know that feeling when like you kind of wake up one day or like middle of the day, you're kind of like, I think I might be coming down with something. And then like the next day it might be totally nothing. Or the next day you might feel like absolute garbage and be like, oh, this is going to be like a week long. Like this is going to suck. I feel like we're kind of at that point of like, there's a couple symptoms right there and it might be absolutely nothing, or it could absolutely just lead to this like avalanche of stuff that happens after this. And I'm not exactly sure which direction it's going to go in yet. I still feel like there's a really good chance that it's just like, oh, we're actually totally fine. And by the time week 1 comes around, it's like there's going to be a couple guys that are out maybe, but they'll totally be able to manage it. But it's just starting to get to that point of like with the amount of injuries, and as we get closer to week 1, it's just a little bit like there's a couple symptoms there, and I'm not exactly sure where things are going to go from this point forward. But we will see, and it'll be interesting one way or the other. And of course, they've got those 2 massive games against Detroit and then Washington right after on Thursday Night Football that are going to come up. We're going to learn a lot about this team very quick early in the season. And to help us do that will be Sarah Kelleher, as we follow her on the Pack-A-Day podcast on Wednesdays all year long. And of course, I'm sure we're going to have many appearances on the Pack-A-Day radio show this year as well. Sarah, where can we find all of your incredible work and anything else you want to plug on the way out?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Always a pleasure. You can follow me, like you said, on Twitter at Sarah Kelleher4. That's pretty much where all of my things will be at, from hopping on the radio show with Andy to podcasts, joining other podcasts. So just excited always to be a part of the Pack-A-Day podcast family, and looking forward to, it's been a fun off season talking football and camp and all of that, but it's always the best when you get into the season and can really break things down and sit down every Sunday and just watch all the football that you can possibly consume. So I can't wait. Can't come soon enough for me.
She says that because she's just in it for the hazard pay of having to work with Dusty and Steve every week. And there's a little bit of bump up in that. And that's the truth of the matter. But Sarah, I cannot thank you enough for everything that you do. Again, follow her on social media at Sarah Kelleher4. And like I said, we'll do this again very soon.
Thanks, Andy.
You bet. Appreciate you a ton. Again, thanks to Sarah for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Make sure, again, to follow her on social media at Sarah Kelleher4. This is the Pack a Day Radio Show. We're going to be back with more right after this.
Like he got the message. I think I just gave him a snack to kind of clear his mind. Just threw him a snack.
What was the snack?
Clementine. I gave a piece of my Clementine. Like, man, just eat this Clementine, man. Just refocus. It's all good.
Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. Tommy does that to me if I'm having a bad day. He just throws me a Clementine and I'm much better. And you're not you when you're hungry. So that was courtesy of the Packers. That was Rasheed Walker talking about Anthony Belton having a tough day and just throwing him a Clementine and saying, hey, it's going to be all good. And that's all sometimes you need in life. Huge thank you to Sarah Kelleher for joining us this past segment. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Nellis is coming up next from 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. And as always want to remind you that the Pack a Day Radio Show is also now a podcast. You can find us anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite pods. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, jump straight to the highlights. Just open up your favorite podcast app, search Pack a Day Radio Show, hit the follow button so you get every minute of the show your way and on your time. Tommy, we had a disappointing Brewers Day yesterday, 2 losses. They are in fact human. They are fallible. I'm pretty easily able to brush this one off. I actually liked how Murph handled it as well. Just said they did a lot of things that have won them some games, and it just didn't work out yesterday. Cubs played actually some really good baseball yesterday. Sometimes you just got to tip your cap, bounce back today. Miz is on the mound, and I'm sure the leadoff show will cover all of it today.
Yeah. Super excited to see Jacob Mizorowski go up against the Cubs after this is why he went to the IR, you remember, as the comebacker came off the leg. Get a little bit of revenge there. And yeah, I mean, Chad Patrick, I thought he was fine for the 27th man, right? He's not traditionally on the 26-man roster in a non-doubleheader situation. And Brandon Woodruff, was he going to be undefeated all year on the starts? No, he hadn't lost yet. They hadn't lost a game in which he pitched in. So I also not freaking out about this loss, to the 2 losses to Chicago yesterday. You could tell they were really pulling out all the stops, too, especially in Game 1. The Cubs used, I think, 5 arms in Game 1 just to make sure, and all of them had a sub-3 ERA. They brought their best stuff at Milwaukee the whole time. Yesterday, Andy, when the Brewers lost 6-4 in that first game, do you know that was just the 11th time all season they lost if they scored 4 runs in a game? They are 65-11 now if they score 4 runs in a game.
That is crazy. Yeah, just one of those days. No biggie, no harm, no foul. They've bought themselves quite a bit of a lead in obviously the division and just in all of baseball in general. And again, some of these times it's just going to happen, and you have to tip your cap to the other team too. I thought the Cubs played fantastic, and like you said, they were pretty much all in on yesterday, especially in that first game. They'll bounce back today, or even if not, they'll bounce back the next day. And I have no concern. Just win one of these next 2, and I think you have no concern whatsoever. Hopefully they can win 2 of the next 2, and that would be even better. We did get a chat over on YouTube. Q asks, what I want to know today, where do the Packers offensive defense rank at the end of 2025-2026 season? Top third, middle third, or bottom third? Yeah, so I think for the offense and the defense, Tommy, I don't know about you, my expectation is that both of these are in the top 10. I can understand they have a harder schedule this year, and if it's like 9th, 10th, anything in that range for either of them, I think that's totally fine and respectable. But I think both the offense and the defense have every right and should be in the top 10 in both, again, total offense, total defense, whether you want to go off of points, DVOA, yardage, whatever metric you want to use. I want and expect the Packers to be in the top 10 in both. Special teams, that's maybe a little bit of a different story, but top 10 for both is my vote. What do you say, Tommy?
I would expect the defense to be ranked higher than the offense. That's all I can say, I think. Okay. I really do believe that. I think that the athleticism at the linebacker position is going to carry Green Bay quite a bit this year, and I'm starting to have faith in the cornerback room right now. I don't know if I love that, but it's just gut again. I think when McKinney and Williams are healthy, they have a great safety blanket, and if Lucas Van Ness is half as good and half as improved as everyone keeps talking about right now, should be a massive upgrade for Green Bay on the front line too.
Hopefully that's the case. Plus, I mean, who knows? Once Micah Parsons comes to town too, it should be a top 3 unit overall.
Right.
You know, clearly. All right, let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan.
All right. So here's my final thought of the day. There's a lot of talk about what's going to happen at left tackle for Green Bay. Is it going to be Rasheed Walker that starts? Is it going to be Jordan Morgan that starts? Here's what I think is going to happen. Aaron Banks is your starting left guard. Elton Jenkins is your starting center. Sean Ryan's your starting right guard. Zach Tom's your starting right tackle. I think those 4 are going to be set in stone. I don't think there's any question about that whatsoever. I don't think Sean Ryan's in a competition. I think left tackle is the one that's up for grabs. And I believe we will see a platoon and a rotation between those 2 players. I don't know which one starts, might be week to week, but I do think you're going to see both of those players play about 50% of the snaps. Here's why. I think you might be at a point where Jordan Morgan might already be slightly better, or at least he's in that conversation at left tackle. I also think you want to bank as many reps as you can for him because he's going to be the starting left tackle in 2026 and probably beyond. So you want to start getting him playing time there. I also don't think you want Rasheed just sitting on the bench. If I'm Rasheed Walker and I'm benched and I'm not playing, I'm demanding a trade. I can't stay here because the Dan Moores of the world are getting $20 million per year in free agency as completely below average starting offensive tackles. And if I'm not even going to get to go out there and play, you've got to send me somewhere that will, because you're going to cost me like $50 million if I don't get to go out there and play. And I don't think they're going to do that to them and to him. I don't think they can also have him be upset and frustrated because they have no other depth behind those top 6 at the moment. Belton maybe can get there, but they don't have anyone else. So you can't just either trade him away, because then you really have no depth along the offensive line. So I think Rashid's your experienced guy. Morgan's your up-and-coming guy and your future starter, but I think you want to kind of keep both of those guys happy. My guess is you're going to end up in a rotation. And if there's any injury, if you obviously have an injury at left tackle, the other one will take over. If you have an injury at left guard, Morgan moves there. Walker stays at left tackle. If you have an injury at center, Morgan goes to right guard. Sean Ryan takes center. If you have an injury at right guard, Morgan goes there. If you have an injury at right tackle, I think either Morgan or Walker will go over there to right tackle. The other will stay at left tackle. So injuries probably will figure this out over time. But to begin with, I bet they start off in a platoon. I don't really know who gets the unofficial or official start, but my guess is they play each about 50% of the snaps, and I think it makes a ton of sense. All right, Tommy, final thought of the day for you?
I hate that. I hate that final thought. That's my final thought. I just if you have 2 left tackles, you have no left tackles, right, Andy? Same with quarterbacks, it feels like.
I think it's different in this case. I think both of them are legitimate tackles, and I think it's more of just trying to appease everyone and get everyone on the field. I'm okay with this one. They did it with Yosh Nijman and Rasheed Walker in the past. They did it with John Runyon Jr. and Sean Ryan in the past. I think they'll have success with it. And again, there'll be an injury that comes up, and it'll all work itself out probably sooner rather than later. We don't want the injury, but I could easily see that happening as well. It's just like what happened at camp yesterday with Aaron Banks being out. Walker's at left tackle, and Morgan goes into left guard, and it all takes care of itself. So we'll see. It'll all take care of itself hopefully in time, and hopefully Morgan is as advertised with how he's looked in preseason so far. All right, huge thank you to you, my friend. Enjoy your leadoff show today. Pick us up a Brewers victory. That's on you. If they don't, it's your fault. Stay tuned for the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Nellis coming up next from 9 to 11 right here on the Fan. You can find the Pack-A-Day podcast 365 days a year, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow with Wendell Ferreira. This has been the Pack-A-Day Radio Show on National Radio Day. Enjoy your Wednesday, everyone, and go Pack Go.